Hey, what is going on, my friends? I'm excited about today. We're going to be covering a few things that have to do with the study hub itself. Let's slide over to that real quick. Let me get my station all set up away from my teaching area. All right, here's the deal. So I've been posting this stuff on Twitter today. What's up, Chad? I see you all over there on YouTube and Twitch. Thank you very much, Mickey, for the 100 bits to kick us off. Good to see you, Fonzie and Muddy Heels. The battle for #1 daily continues. Always enjoy that. Kelmex, Signal, Teammate, Adder, Ballsy, Mort, Myers. Let's go. Let's get paid, okay? So when I'm looking at this real quick, I am seeing, all sorts of data. And I wanted to kind of go over how what's up, Boxer? Good to see you, man. How I personally like to use the study hub. And I've sent out a series of tweets, and I figured this was just a fun little way to do it where we can, review how my thought process goes into using this, and you can tell me how you use it or how you see some of this stuff being incredibly useful. So one of the first things that popped for me was this issue between Chase Edmonds this week on DraftKings with his pricing, and a similar situation we have with Alexander Madison, was it week 7, I want to say, when he was uber chalk. He was very expensive, 7.3K, I want to say. There's difference this week because I don't think Edmonds will be uber chalk like we saw Madison. Madison, a highly regarded backup running back. Edmonds, in the DFS world, people certainly have had him on their radar, but I don't think his ownership's going to climb to what we saw Madison. Madison was like uber chalk. He was very, very, very chalky. Edmonds, for whatever reason, not popping in our ownership models right now. Across the industry, when I look around, I don't see him popping elsewhere either. Maybe it's just because of price point. Maybe it's recency bias. I'm not entirely sure, but with no Kenyon Drake, it looks like Chase Edmonds potentially is in a spot where it's a very similar situation. He's priced up. He's a very established backup. We've seen him excel in a starter's role in the past. Last year, at 27 carries 1 week. It was his only game over the last 3 years with 10 or more carries, and he ran for like 130 yards rushing. The kid is good. He's very good. He's talented. He's a better pass catching back than anything. I'm not sure if he's going to, hold up to 15, 20 carries. He still might only get 10 to 12, and they just work in some backups or go a little bit more pass heavy, but still, you're getting a backup running back who's done quite well over the last 4 weeks specifically, now thrust into a starting job in a pretty decent matchup. Cruncher loves Edmonds. Yeah, our projections are on him right now too, so I'm intrigued to see what happens here. If FC projections are on him, if we're on him, is the industry all going to be jamming him in which case the ownership will rise and we have decisions to make. All right, so when I was going through this, how did I identify this and how did I see something I wanted to manage and where did I want to look into it? So I started to look into, this is the NFL Study Hub. I started to look into, I'm going to drop it right here, by the way. There it is. So, by the way, if you want to look at like last week's results and stuff like that, you can through this. The game flow tab is the one I'm using today. We talked about the range of outcomes. I'm still trying to get a hold of CG for this. But the game flow tab is what I want to look at today because I use this a lot. I really like the game flow tab. It's very helpful for me personally to tell my DFS story, my game theory, right? This is how I create my theories for the week and how I create my strategies. And by the way, if you're wanting to check out a Study Hub sample, just go to the website, teamriseorfall.com. Hover over the NFL tab, scroll down to the NFL Study Hub sample, and you'll get what you're seeing here. But it's either last week's or 2 weeks ago, and you can have a sample. And it'll have 2 weeks of projections on there if you want to fool around and FC rewind and things like that. Compare ownerships, whatever you want to do. You want to use our data and just test it and sample it? By all means, go ahead. We posted the Study Hub sample here. There's a sample for every single sport. MLB, NBA, NASCAR, PGA, and I can't remember MMA. Nope, we don't have one for MMA. All right, so while we're looking here, the first thing I go do each and every week is I'm looking at this stuff, okay? So, of course, I'm looking at Vegas. I want to see, who are going to be the higher scoring teams, and then what type of game flow scenario can we get in? We have interesting spots up and down the league this week, and one of them that popped off was the Chase Edmonds thrust into a starting role, but the next one, and it jumped off the page, was this one. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers as massive 13.5 point favorites with a 29.5 point team implied total. All right. Well, when I slide over to this section, what this is showing real quick, the team run versus pass distribution, what I'm seeing here is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me show you how to read this. Thank you very much, Money Hill. I appreciate that, man. So the Pittsburgh Steelers average 65.3 plays per game. They run the ball on 43.8% of their snaps, and they throw the ball on 56.2% of all of their snaps. If I want to compare that with Arizona throws the ball on 54.8%, runs the ball on 45.2%. The reason why I said they're similar situations, and I already see people saying much different kind of offense. Sure, different type of offense, I assume you mean as far as like downfield passing and pace and all that. But truly, when you're comparing the two, the only differential here is the the only sizable differential here is the 68 plays per game, 68.3 by the Cardinals and 57.9 by the Vikings. That is sizable to me. That is something to hang your hat on. That means a team is going to get more opportunities, more snaps. More snaps means more opportunities. More opportunities means potentially more fantasy points. The other thing I identify here is the fact that the Cardinals have ran 45% of the time, the Vikings 49% of the time. So the distribution between rushing and passing between these two offenses, very small difference. 4% is not much, my friends. Think about it this way. Over 100 plays in a game, that means the Vikings are running the ball 4 more times than the Cardinals. That's it. Just 4, and that's over 100 snaps. As we can see, they're only getting about 58 snaps per game versus 65 snaps per game. Comes out to like the Vikings run the ball 2.5 times more per game than the Cardinals. That's legitimately what those are showing. So not a huge discrepancy. The discrepancies I'm usually looking for are going to be something like this. A very, very hot, remember, red is hot, blue is cold. Look at this as like a heat map. The 49.6% rushing from the Vikings versus the 34% from the Bears. That's significant. That's 15%. That's 15 plays, 15 less rushes per game over the course of 100 plays, which would average down to over 50 plays, like 7.5 rushes less or more, depending on which side you're looking at. So these are important to me when you're comparing sizable differences. The next thing I do, thank you, Stonewall, I appreciate that. Boxer, appreciate this. You guys must like what I'm doing right now. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your support too. The next thing I look at after I'm trying to identify, is there any interesting spots here where I can attack or use this to my advantage? Is there a team that runs the ball a ton that will be in a nice game flow scenario, or vice versa? Is there a team that doesn't often run the ball a lot but might be winning by a ton this week, in which case they run the ball a little bit more? And that's one I think that I found right here was the Steelers. They run the ball 43.8% of the time. That's middle of the road. In fact, if we sort this tab right here, which you all can do, they are 8th highest on the board, but truly, again, the discrepancy is not that much between about 13th right here up to 8th or 7th, whatever this is. We're talking 3 percentage points. That's not much at all. Now, what we're looking at, though, is the fact that they average 65.3 plays per game. Dallas averages 74 plays per game, which, by the way, if you look into it, it's down a lot since these quarterbacks continue to get injured, and I would imagine they're not going to have them ball that much this week. However, what's not going to change right here is how pathetic the Cowboys' defense is. So I go over to the rushing yards because now I'm thinking to myself, all right, I've got a team like the Steelers with a 29.5 point implied team total, a 13.5 point favorite, and I know they run the ball 44% of the time. Well, I can game theorize that they're going to be winning big time this weekend. Maybe up 20, 25, 30 points. Who knows? Something wild, right? Even if they're clearing that 14-point line there, 13.5 point line, that means we're up by at least 2 touchdowns, in which case they can probably, take their foot off the throttle a little bit in the second half, run the ball a little bit more with James Conner. Who knows? Benny Snell gets some opportunities as well, in which case this rush percentage will increase and the pass percentage might decrease. Does this mean the ceiling is a little bit lower this week on the Steelers passing offense and pass catchers? I think potentially yes. Does this mean the increase ceiling on players like James Conner or even like a Benny Snell large field tournament? I think yes. I think the ceiling is now increased. least. And now the next thing I want to do is go over and see, okay, well, how does that look as far as the defense matches up? And when I sort this category, this is opponents' points and yards allowed. The Dallas Cowboys, this is showing the Dallas. So Pittsburgh, here's their defensive projections, ownership, blah, blah, blah. Then Vegas line shows their team play calling, how many plays they run per game, how many times they run the ball percentage-wise, pass-wise. And then they're facing a defense giving up 33.2 points per game. No defense on the slate gives up more points. And no defense on the slate gives up more rushing yards per game. 170.9 yards per game given up on the ground by the Cowboys defense. And again, when I look at this, I'm seeing also they are only giving up 214 yards passing per game, which is right outside. That is in the top 5. They do not give up much passing, and that's because they are Swiss cheese on defense, which means we have a potential for a James Conner and Steelers defense correlative stack, one that I don't usually support, the running back and defensive stack. And I tried to show this in a series of tweets today over here at twitter.com/DFSnDonuts, where I'm highlighting these things just based on the study hub. And I think the study hub is perfect for this type of scenario. You're looking for game theories. You're trying to identify edges based on teams' playing calling, the opposing defense, and just game theorize what you think will happen. This is just a guess. It's a guesstimate. It's an estimate. It's a projection. I don't know. Maybe Big Ben throws for 4 touchdowns, 250 yards in the first half. All of the wide receivers all hit value. A couple of them exceed. Ben is super fine. And in the second half, James Conner is subbed out for Benny Snell as they're winning 28-0. Benny Snell racks up 15 touches in the second half. I mean, that's a game theory that you can paint on your own if that's what you believe in. But I use, and you can use, the Study Hub to identify how you want to approach each and every game. And I kid you not, when I'm doing my tiered rankings all week, I am using this first and foremost to identify how I envision this game going. I'll go dig deeper. I'll start looking at other data. I'll go over to the running back tab, which I spent this morning a little bit of time on, and here's what I was finding. All right, so I went over here. Again, I showed that the Steelers team run pass distribution, the opponent, Cowboys giving a 33.2 points per game, 170.9 yards rushing. And then the next thing I looked at was, well, okay, what kind of snaps can I be looking at for the running backs? And while I was looking at the snap percentages, I was identifying, holy smokes, last week Dalvin Cook had 88% of the snaps after coming off a 2-week layoff with a groin injury. And then right underneath this, Mike Davis, 83% snaps in week 5, 88, 72, 85. CMC returns this week. Is he going to slide back into an 80% or higher snap rate? And then down here out of the corner of my eye, I happen to see James Conner, 63%, 66%, 84%, 58% snap rate, okay? So then that made me start looking into this. Okay, now I can take, yeah, it is, teammate, I do like it too. Now I can look at this and be like, okay, James Conner, what do I like? And by the way, I found out a few more things here with the running back tab, James Conner, Chase Edmonds, Todd Gurley, and let me show you how I got there. So I identified what I wanted to research through the game flow tab. I went over to the running back tab to identify very specific data with these positions and these teams. And it's these 4 categories. Can you see it on my stream? Okay, cool. So it's these 4 right here. Now I'm looking at snap rate. I'm looking at touches and carries over the last 4 weeks. I'm looking at the DK fantasy points per game per week, FanDuel points per game, specific to DK right now because that is what I'm researching. So when I was doing this, I was identifying the fact that, okay, wow, where's James Conner? There he is. James Conner. Okay, wow. I mean, James Conner, 20 points per, or 20 touches per game in those snap rates. So it doesn't take him to have like a massive snap rate for him to do a really good job. I mean, he's been above average. He's been good, at least, with 20 touches per game over the last 4 weeks. And those snap rates, again, 63, 66, and 58% are kind of low in my mind, but I'm seeing the touches didn't matter. 63% of the touches in week 5 at running back. Okay, well, 63% of the snaps in week 5. Okay, that's fine because in week 5 he had 18 touches. In week 6 he had 21 touches at 66% snap rate. And then this increased snap shocked me a little bit. 84%, a huge increase, only led to 2 more touches in week 7. 23 touches compared to 21. So he had a massive 18% jump in snaps over the course of 65 plays, my friends. Ends up being like 10 more snaps, a little bit more than that, probably about 11 more snaps, and it only amounted to 2 more touches. Not that big of a deal. And then again, the next week dropped down to 58%, and he still had 18 touches, which was very in line with what the rest of the numbers were. Okay, well, how did his production go in those weeks? All right, well, I saw 15.3, 20.2, 14.1. By the way, that was his season high 84% snap rate, 23 touches, and he only had 14.1 points in that game. It seems like volume does not give him specifically a boost in production, and at least it doesn't guarantee the more snaps, the more touches, the more points for someone like James Conner. He's inherently a little bit touchdown dependent because he's not catching the ball out of the backfield in certain games, or vice versa. It is rare that he's getting 20 touches and 5 receptions. He's either getting like 12 carries, he's going to rack up 6 catches, or he's going to get 18 carries and like 1 or 2 catches. A game like this week, I think we probably see something like that against the Cowboys. Terrible rush defense, maybe 18 carries, 2 catches. I don't think you're going to see all of a sudden a 28-touch performance. If they're winning big time, it's going to be Benny Snell burning the clock in the second half, and you're just hoping that, James Conner was able to amount his success in his first 18 to 20 touches of the game. Now, from here, I was like, okay, what do these compare to? So I started sorting this. All right, well, average touches per week. All right, here we go. I have James Conner right here. Comes in as the 7th highest guy on the slate. All right, average touches per week, 20. Other guys in this, let me slide this over. Usually I blow this up, but I didn't know if you'd be able to see it underneath my camera. Can you see this when I blow it up? It might actually be better. I thought it would shrink on the screen. You wouldn't be able to see under my camera. That looks pretty good, though. I wonder if I can go one bigger. I should have had this the whole time. Oops. Okay. Anyways, yeah, that's like, I usually shrink this because it's hard to fit it all in for a stream. But I guess this works right here for what we're doing here. We're only looking at certain categories. By the way, chat, I know I've been ignoring a little bit. I'll come back to all of you. I really want to do this like a tutorial-based version because I think this is always extremely helpful for people. And then I'll go back, I'll check out Twitch, I'll check out YouTube, all right? So when I was sorting here, I wanted to sort how many people are getting more touches per week than James Conner. All right, 20 touches per week. And then I wanted to compare their snap rates. Guys like David Montgomery getting 81% or more snaps per week, 20.5 touches per week. And then his points per week, 14.3. Again, another person with an increased opportunity, increased snap rate does not lead to increased production. And then I started comparing, oh, okay, well then what about price points in regards to these touches and their current points per game averages? So I started to compare. I made a little chart on the side, and I deleted it already, but I took these guys in Excel, and I kept only the guys I was highlighting with their numbers all next to each other, okay? And you can actually do this by using the filter tabs up here on the top, by just keeping like certain teams, certain running backs. So let's say I wanted to look at Atlanta. I wanted to look at... who are those guys? Pittsburgh, and not Minnesota, Arizona. All right, so there we go. I used the filter tab right here after I had sorted the main slate, and I'm going over to the touches, all right? And I can see, and this is where I found this. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So even though over the last 4 weeks, let me sort by points per game. Thank you very much, Cashman. Appreciate that. So over the last 4 weeks, DK Fantasy points per game, I see Todd Gurley at 17.6 points per game. Not only that, he's shown that he has the highest ceiling with the 2 highest DK scoring weeks out of these 3 running backs. He scored 28 in week 5, 22 in week 7, and then the other weeks it was James Conner in there, and we had Chase Edmonds with 2 outlier performances, did not play in week 8, had a 3.9 in week 6. That was probably the Kenyon Drake big week where you went bonkers. All right, so when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing that's actually kind of shocking. Todd Gurley has the, I would not have said this if you asked me, but I looked into it. Todd Gurley potentially has the highest ceiling week to week. But then we have to look at it in like a microscopic view, a macro level, week 9 only. Who's going to have the highest ceiling? So I'm looking at someone like Chase Edmonds, who has thrown together on just 8.7 touches per week, a 20.2 point performance and a 21.5 point performance on the DK fantasy points over the last 4 weeks. So here we go. In those 2 weeks, he had 8 touches and 12 touches. He has shown that he has an astronomical ceiling based on his touch rate. And now we're going to get this market share of 13% or whatever. We'll probably get pretty close to Todd Gurley at 60%, 63%, James Conner. His touches likely will increase. I would not doubt them to double up to 17.4 points or 17.4 touches. You know, if he's only getting 8.7 per week and he's able to average 15 points per game, you know, I don't think it's out of the question to say this week he's going to get 16 or so touches, potentially even more. And if we want to compare that to somebody, you know, we could have looked at Kenyon Drake when he was active, and that would have been helpful, but he's not in our player pool right here because he's not active this week. But compare, what does Kenyon Drake usually do? And then does Chase Edmonds slide right into that? And you can kind of start to weigh these factors into your decision making. The game flow here, the game flow chart, and then again, the running back tab, these do not tell you this is the guy, this is the play based on these stats. What they are is they're things for you to weight into your decision making however you want to weight these factors. And again, I showed this kind of here. I went from one thing to the next to the next. I started looking at Chase Edmonds. I was comparing him to Alexander Madison, and then I started to get into another situation where I was looking at him versus James Conner. I saw the Steelers defense, Steelers running backs against Dallas and their terrible defense against running backs and rushers using the game flow tab. And then I had slid over and I wanted to compare James Conner versus other running backs. I looked at snap rates, Delvin Cook being at 88% after a 2-week injury. What can we expect from CMC in week 9 coming back from his injury? And then I compared the last 4 weeks, player A, player B, player C, their touches and points per game, the fact that Chase Edmonds is priced up here, and still, shockingly, and I did not highlight it because I wanted to save it for stream, Edmonds starting points to him being the potential play, right? He's done great in less touches, and now he'll get a full workload. James Conner has the best matchup, but then here we go. The under-the-radar Todd Gurley is the cheapest running back and has shown over the last 4 weeks with his workload, whatever it was, his matchups maybe, he's a little bit touchdown dependent, I understand, but Todd Gurley sneaking in here as somebody who's cheaper than both of these two and has shown over the last 4 weeks and 11 total combined sample size games, the 2 highest scoring ceilings for all 11 games. So take what you want from this. I don't entirely know what the answer is. It's only Thursday. This is kind of my preliminary stuff. These are the things that go into my decision making. When I give you those tiered rankings and my personal player pool that I put on the website, again, this NFL tab right here where I'm going over to the tiered rankings, all of the stuff you just saw me do, I go position by position, game by game. I do all of that. It takes me like, someone asked me on Saturday, like, yo, Mitch, what do you think? Who do you like more? Is it Keenan Allen or Tyler Boyd? And I was like, okay, man. I mean, I literally just spent 5 hours putting together these rankings based off all of my research. Please go click on the NFL tab, go to the tiered notes. Okay, well, how would you build a lineup with them? Well, my friend, right here, go to the final notes and strategy. I made a 20-minute video of me building sample lineups off of my tiered rankings. And also, in this video, I go player by player and I describe kind of what went into it and a little bit of what you just saw through the game flow tab. But the power is in your hands, my friend. And I've had this thought for a few weeks now. Then when I go through the study hub and I start to make my tier rankings here, and I'm identifying these players that are 1s, that are 2s, my tier 1 running backs, tier 2 wide receivers, things like that, Devontae Adams in here, T. Higgins, AJ Go, whatever, that maybe the play is to go over to here and, not only do I make my personal player pool, but then after that, I want to go through and find a way to weight a little bit heavier those guys with my tier 1s and 2s rather than just having them in the player pool. And I've had this theory and I've wanted to test it, and I haven't had a chance to test it yet, but I think it's probably a good idea to go through FC Rewind, go through my tiered rankings week by week, and then simply doing something like this. Okay, last week, I don't know, what is this? Is this This isn't a rewind. This is up to date. So let's pretend it's week 10 now, and you're looking back, and like Pat Mahomes here was, my tier 1 quarterback. He's my only tier 1. Okay, so when you had been crunching, maybe you should have given a thumb up or 2 thumbs up to all my tier 1s, 1 thumb up to my tier 2s, and then tier 3 is left alone. Tier 4 gets a thumb down. Tier 5 gets 2 thumbs down. I don't know. Whatever it is, I don't know the strategy. I don't know the theory behind it, but I think there's an opportunity here to simply do stuff like this. Try to make it a little bit simpler and not have to put so much effort into, changing your rules up, changing your groups up. Now I want you to change the correlation with this stack and this stack, because you're doing that to ultimately just get a certain exposure on each player, right? Well, in which case, why can't we just go through and do something quickly like this? If we've gone through and put in all the effort to make our groups, make our player position, our groups, and make our position stacks, I think the last thing to make this work, the last piece to the puzzle, again, we're just gathering puzzle pieces before we put it together. Maybe the last piece is going through, finding each player, identifying them based on their ranking or whatever, CG's ranking, CG's exposures, Team A's player picks, Scrosby's player pool. It doesn't have to be mine. It could be whomever you rely on. And then using that to just simply add some thumbs to certain players. Maybe you're not downgrading anybody. Maybe you just go and you say, all right, I only want the tier 1s. Bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. You give 1 thumb up each. I don't know. Whatever it is, I think it's not like, yo, friends, the only thing you need to do is make position stacks. I don't think that's true. The only thing you need is groups. Don't think that's true either. Those two being together, is that the way? Yeah, probably would work just fine. But I don't always want to just be complacent and say, well, we've had some really good weeks. We had a $12,000 winner last week. Ellie Bourne won another $19K last week. Okay, that's great. That's great. But, adapt. Keep adapting. Keep getting better. Don't be complacent just because something is working. And I'm not somebody who's like, trust the process. Trust the process. Don't fix it until it's broken. No, things are going to break. You have to stay ahead of it. It's like maintenance. Your washing machine will ultimately break if you don't take care of it. Your car will break down if you don't change out the oil and you don't change the filters, and you're not doing all this stuff for maintenance for your car. And I think you need to provide maintenance for your DFS too. You can't go with something that worked in 2019 MLB stacking, running 5-2s every single week. That's what you do week in and week out, day in and day out, and that's how you win. Oh, in NFL 2020 for the first 6 weeks, all I did was quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, opposing wide receiver, tight end, 3-man stacks. I'm doing it for the rest of the year. Why? Identify the trends, the things that are changing. We try to do that in the first 2 days of streaming each week when we're looking at DraftKings lineup study, and then we go to DraftKings lineup rewind. By the way, lineup study, unbelievable. I truly feel like if you're trying to identify the next step in your DFS career, whether that's making it go from a losing player to a winning player, making that go from just a hobby to potentially some side income, making that a side income to your career, making that a career into a retirement, whatever it is, I think it starts right here at lineup study using Pro. I think it's incredibly helpful for multiple reasons. Studying Pro's lineup, studying what won, studying what got crushed week in and week out is a huge factor in my game. Going to the general tab down here, the FC Pro randomness I think is by far probably the biggest edge in the industry, using the distribution curve, and I've identified why that's so good in there. And I don't know. I know I'm starting to go off the handles here, as I often do when I get on the podium and I just start banging my fist talking. But I just wanted to kind of review how I personally use the Study Hub, why I think it is a huge edge for the industry to use the Study Hub. But it's not just like, here's a bunch of data. It's here's the data, here's how you use it, and then how do you use it in conjunction with FC, who we want to support with our content, right? And it's not just like, hey, go out there and make your best lineups with a bunch of stats, because we know that's not how you win. Use these stats, use this data to paint a picture, and then how do you attack it game theory wise? You can use that through the Top Stacks tool if you're making single entry lineups. By all means, create your game theory and paint it this way. Okay, well, if I don't think that Connor's going to have himself a good game, well then, this is last week's Top Stacks tool, then go to your biggest 4-man stack you can create with Big Ben, and that doesn't have James Conner involved, and attack the passing game, saying to yourself that Connor's going to suck, leverage the Connor chalk, and go with the Steelers passing game. How can can you do that? Go to the Top Stacks tool, grab the 4-player stack by projection or by rating or by value, and plug one in, build your lineup around it. Or go to DraftKings, Fantasy Cruncher here, upload the projections, make your group, and then make a correlation with Big Ben, where Big Ben has a correlative group and his wide receivers get massive increases in projections, and James Conner's goes way down. There's a lot you can do. I don't entirely know what the correct answer is. I just want to give you guys opportunities to identify all the different things and ways that you can do this stuff and make sure that you are completely armed to the teeth going into week 9. Woo! Deep breath. YouTube over there is like, this guy ever stop talking? AC Barker says, huge advantage if you can afford FC Pro. Completely agree, man. I think it's unbeatable. There's nothing like it on the market, and I think it's totally the industry standard. And I would not doubt that there are a lot of people out there using randomness right now that would be winning players, or potentially would put themselves in a better spot to be a winning player, and maybe even have a phenomenal process already that's just being dragged down by regular randomness. You never know this. You never really know. There's only one way to find out. And I think you can use our FC voucher, the generosity of Dave to have this on the site for us through the subscribe tab right here. I think if you simply go here, use your voucher that you get with us, you get $20 to use on FC every month. And by the way, they stack up. So let's say you didn't use it for 3 months. That means you have a $60 voucher to use towards FC going into your 4th month. If that's the month you want to try to finally use FC Pro and you're trying to get like a discount off of it because you want to try it out, try it. Maybe you have a huge month of winning, and all of a sudden you've got paid off FC Pro for a year, you paid off ROF for a year, and you're just like, you've changed what DFS is for you long term. I think there's many different avenues to get there. I'm not entirely sure what it is for you, but I'm trying to offer as many different ways as possible. All right, exhale. Yeah, no doubt. 500 bets. Thank you very much, Peter Ginger. I appreciate you. I know I should run back through here and check up on everybody. Cashman, thank you very much for 200 bits, man. Renjish, thank you very much for subscribing on Prime. DK81, 6-month sub. He says, what's up, everybody? Good to see you. Papa Wiles, thank you very much for that 100 bits. Stonewall, thank you very much for 100. Boxer, Muddy, Mickey, 100 each. Thank you all. Chat, let me see if I missed anything in particular that I need. Actually, do me a huge favor. If there was something in chat you wanted to have me like kind of gloss over as I was doing my podium speech, by all means, go ahead and fire off your question, and I'll come to it right now as I'm scrolling through chat. All right, James Conner lock, blah, blah, blah. Okay, love this instruction, says Pop Wiles. Cool. Steelers are expensive. Yes, they are. On FanDuel, though, they're affordable. We know this. Is there a way to increase the chance of Steelers defense if Conner, but not guarantee them? Yeah, absolutely. Let me show you right now. This is why I scrolled back through. So Mort wants to know how to do that through groups. I'm here to help out and support y'all. So I'm going to create a group. I'm simply going to make this my Conner Steelers D, all right? So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to grab James Conner, baby. All right, I'm going to lock this in. This is going to say, by the way, you could simply just do this. Only apply the adjustments, and here's why. Let me show you. So now this rule no longer applies. I'm going to go over here. Can I type in defense? No. Let me try Steelers. Oh, it still says James Conner. Let me try Steelers. No. Pitt. There we go. Pittsburgh defense. All right, cool. Anytime James Conner is used, you can give, 50% increase to the Steelers projection. There you go. If you click this box right here, you've now said that all projections are going to be increased in this group. Well, I shouldn't say all. Anytime James Conner ends up in your lineup, the Steelers defense will be increased projection by 50%, which this is FC's projection. Fine projection source if you'd like it. 8.27. Okay, give that a 50% increase, which is what, 4.135. So that comes out to 12.41 is what the projection would come out to be. And that means that anytime James Conner is in the lineup, the Steelers defense will have a 12.41 point projection, but it doesn't mean they'll be used. If you want to make sure that they're always used together, you could just do this. If the key player is used, James Conner, then use exactly one player from this group. So by this making it this group, anytime James Conner is in my lineup, the Steelers defense is basically going to be locked in there. If I don't want this rule and I only want the increased projection on the Steelers defense, boom, there you go, my friend. Game flow tab is very useful. I spend most of my time in the study hub there. Me too, Team A. I think it's one of the greatest things we offer right there. Let's see. Right underneath there, Fonzie says you could group them, key counter, Steelers defense, up their percentage, and make it at most one. Doesn't guarantee. All right, so he gave an alternative. I was up last night doing the same exact thing. Baller, Maniac. I like that. Let's see. Chase Edmond hit those games while still splitting the majority of the work. Hard to gauge his literal ceiling. Exactly. For what it's worth, Hill looks way better than Gurley too. Yeah, no kidding. Give him some touches. Let's see. Videos are awesome. Keep making them. Cool. Appreciate that. Definitely a stream to rewatch when not at work. Following along the study hub. Appreciate this one. No doubt. I got you. I'm actually going to do what you just saw me do, by the way. Long term, by the way, in a few weeks, I potentially might have some extra time to myself. I plan on making a tutorial like you just saw, and it's going to be like an example tutorial for how I would use the PGA Study Hub, NASCAR Study Hub, MMA Study Hub, MLB, NBA, NFL, all 6 study hubs, how I personally see the best scenario of using them, showing you different options of how to apply NFC, how to apply to your single entries. I just don't have the time to do so while I'm still teaching here. All right, I tried to do that 2 weeks ago. Make a group of tier 1s and say must use at least one. Interesting. So that's going back to the tiered ranking stuff. I believe in the power of the thumbs. What's up, Allie? Good to see you here. Let's see. Also, you need to give yourself more than 1 week to try something, says Meyer. Yeah, no doubt. Don't abandon your process because of one bad week, 100%. Much like what we've seen through doing all of our lineup study and lineup rewind stuff, where we used our projections. We were doing like baseline projections at 50% global cap and made money in 6 of 7 weeks. Well, guess what? In week 8, it lost money. So does that mean that you shouldn't try it in week 9 in some way, shape, or form? I don't know. That's up for you to decide. But now I know that 6 of the 8 weeks, it's made money doing strategies based off that, right? So off that foundation, it's made money on 75% of the weeks. Did it work this past week? No, it did not. It worked the previous 4 weeks. Does that mean I should jump ship now? It's going to go on a big losing streak? Who the freak knows? Nobody knows this, okay? Hindsight's 2020. Going forward, we all have the same blurry vision. So you got to make your own choices. I can't tell you what to do. FC Pro pays for itself once you win, no doubt. Shui subbed for month 6. I appreciate that, man. Meyer says, I was trying to show someone in Discord today. Could you show if forcing 4-man game stacks, you need to exclude them from the mini stack rule. Otherwise, you'll probably get 0 of that QB unless you lock them. Sure, I can show that in a minute. One other thing I also do is I will make 2 groups in the groups and then make 2 different folders and have a group of 4-man stacks and a group of 3-man stacks. Disable one, apply the other, and then you can do it that way. One other way you can quickly do that is through the position stacks. You just make the stack set up how you want it, and then run however many lineups you plan on making with those quarterbacks that way, and then turn that, take that rule out, and then make, like 4-man stacks for your final, I don't know, however many lineups you're going to do. All right, so now my final 50, I want 4-man stacks, and you can just do it this way. I mean, that's totally fine. All right, run this out for 50. All right, now I only want 3-man stacks for 100 of my lineups. All right, I just turned that off and I turned this on, and you can do it that way too. There are so many different ways to use FC. What did I find out with yesterday's stream? You got to check that out, homie. That's right there in the video log. Do you have to group another Steelers D as player? No, we're good. Oh, okay, cool. I covered that already. We're good. We're good. Add risers to NFL Study Hub. Not sure what you're talking about. Totally forgot about the checkbox. Glad donuts went back. Much easier way. Fonzie. Okay, cool. Yeah, you can use the same concept for a ton of different groups based on game flow. Precisely more. precisely. And I think that is the way to use the game flow. I think you game theorize what you want to happen through this game, however you see fit, and then you can go in there and create that group. Let's please use the Steelers. All right, so this will be Big Ben. Let's use the Steelers as our game flow, all right? Just while we're on there, P-I-T, pit. All right, so you can truly do it two ways. For the first one, I'm going to grab Big Ben, and then we're going to throw all these guys in here. I guess James Washington. All right, so you've got this huge group. Then you're saying to yourself, all right, Big Ben's going to go nuclear this week, all right? I think he's going to go ham, and, James Conner, let me make that minus 65. And I think James Conner is going to just bust, okay? All right, so if Big Ben goes nuclear, who's going to benefit? All right, let's give a 25% increase to Juju. Deontay, let's give him a 40% increase as the cheapest wide receiver. Maybe a little leverage here with Eric Ebron. We'll give him a 15% increase. We'll leave Chase Claypool. We'll make him a little bit lower, minus 10% projection decrease. And, I don't know, James Washington gets a 20% increase. Steelers D. If Big Ben goes bonkers, maybe it's because Dallas keeps pace. All right, so we lower them. All right, there we go. We've got a Big Ben. Anytime that Big Ben shows up, James Conner gets crushed. His pass catchers get a huge boost. And then you can create another group and have it be, James, Steelers, Pit D stack. And what we had made earlier, okay, now I've got James Conner, and now you set this up very precisely that any time that James Conner shows up, you have a sizable increase, 500%. And you're basically saying anytime that James Conner shows up into your lineups today, the Steelers defense will be locked with him. So either Big Ben's going to be in massive stacks, or you're going to have James Conner and Steelers D stacked together. No matter what, you're having almost an all-in approach on one scenario. And you can use the game flow tab to set all of these up. You can set up all sorts of scenarios for every single team. Every single team. Running back situation or pass catching situation, and just make a game flow like groups approach. I love it. You can do mini stacks. You could do, opposing wide receiver stuff, right? So who does I don't know, Cowboys. You could set it up so that, like, if Deontay Johnson is in the lineup, that you always want CeeDee Lamb opposite of him, or maybe you want CeeDee Lamb to get a 50% increase in projection, or Amari Cooper you want locked in there every single time that Deontay Johnson pops up. What's a better one? Devontae Parker versus DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, you can make a group here where every single time, and this is aside from having a quarterback involved, you can have DeAndre Hopkins in here keyed as your wide receiver, and then every time that he's in there, golly, I can't type. Parkler? Every time that Hopkins is keyed in as a wide receiver this week, you want Devontae Parker to get a 75% increase in projection. I have said the rule doesn't matter. I just want Parker to get a big increase, okay? And this will give you an opportunity to organically have stacks. This is a secondary stack. The quarterbacks are not involved. This is simply just saying if Hopkins shows up, I want Parker to have a massive increase. You can do the same thing and have another group where Parker is also up here and then Hopkins is down here getting the same increase. So you'd have like Hopkins with Parker group, Parker with Hopkins group, and they always are both getting increases of similar amounts or something. Whatever you want it to be. I mean, the world is your oyster through these groups, and truly you can use the game flow to paint the picture you think is going to work. Chat tonight about today? No, I did not cover that. Chicago. Does it work to double key them? Yes, you could do Parker. No, not double keyed. I don't believe so. That's a good question though. Potentially, T-Lich, but think about it this way. If you have asked FC to put together a 5-man stack, that's not guaranteed that happens. It might organically happen, but what if your 5-man stack, let me just create one real quick. What if your 5-man stack isn't that, right? What if you have it a little bit different. All right, let me just set this up real quick. And let me run out 20 lineups. SC projections. All right, so let's look at this one. Here's one. All right, Drew Lock, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, Julio Jones, Todd Gurley. There's a 5-man stack. These 2 spots could be left open where you could have, Hopkins across from Parker, but there will also be lineups like this. Mahomes, Robinson, Kelsey with Samuel and Anderson. There is not enough spots left for a stack to work. So while Hopkins might slide in there as your flex, there's no way for Parker to be stacked with him because there's not an open wide receiver spot. So that's what I mean. You could set it up like that to Nick. You got to check the video log on Twitch, homie. I'm very focused on one thing today, trying to help people out in a certain way. So I would go back, grab the video log right there on Twitch. You can, if you are not a sub, you can just, you can use that Prime link right there. Makes sense? Cool. Happy to help you, T-Lich. That's the issue with forcing 4-mans with the rule for mini stacks. Yeah, when you guys are forcing certain stacks, I think it's hard. I think it's hard. When you're doing this, you've got to go through, you've got to include, you have to exclude, you got to do all sorts of things to make sure you get exactly what you want. Personally, I like to just take it off, so to speak, whenever I'm doing one thing to the next. If I'm going to make a bunch of 5-man stacks, then I'll make a bunch of 5-man stacks. And then when I'm done with my 5-mans, okay, maybe now I'm going to be making only 4-man stacks. All right, cool. I'm done with 4-mans. All right, now I'm going to be making 3-man stacks. And I just do it that way. Instead of doing include, and then having to like bust your brain trying to figure out, okay, well, no, for 3-player game stacks. No, I want to exclude the. I want to exclude KC. Okay, okay, but also for 4-player game stacks, I want to include. I want to include KC. Oh no, wait, I had include on both. Oh wait, let me go back to 3 players. Okay, exclude KC. You just get bottlenecked. And then what happens if you do this for like 8 teams and you're trying to figure out who's an include, who's an exclude, who gets a 3-player game stack, who gets a 4-player. Well, what happens when you try to crunch and it doesn't work because you've screwed up your rules somehow and all of a sudden you can't make lineups? Imagine trying to go back through it. I don't do that. I'm not smart enough. I'm not saying it's not the right move. I saw Meyer share a screenshot in Discord today where he had like 9 rules set up. It works for him. His brain is better than mine and he's able to see the puzzle that way. I can't. I got to do it one step at a time. No. I ain't saying that your way is wrong, man. Your way might be the most efficient and the best way. I just can't get there. Thank you for all those likes and the subscriptions over there on YouTube. I hope this was a very helpful stream. I actually got to run, my friends. I teach in a few minutes here. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed today immensely, and I truly hope that I was able to help some people out today and really kind of put you on the path to victory this week, heading into week 9. I will see you on Friday, which, by the way, I will update you about the stream and about some things coming up here in the future as far as Team Rise or Fall goes. Please, by all means, check us out, teamriseorfall.com/subscribe, and use that $20 FC credit and start pounding out lineups with us. And we hope to see you on the inside, my friends. Thank you very much for that on the way out. I appreciate you, Money Heel. Thank you. I hope you have the best day ever, everybody. And stay positive out there, all right? Keep your head above water, shine the light on others. Don't dive headfirst in the darkness with everybody else. A lot of anger out there right now. Stay positive, stay kind, and try to brighten everyone's day around you. And it's infectious. It'll return its light will be reflected